Okay. Hello again, Martin Braden here, and welcome to my channel. As you can see, to my left on your screen, but it's actually to my left as I face it, I have a guest with me this morning. Hi, Karest. It's good to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm
Now,
doing very great today.
fantastic. And you're there in Denmark, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm living just outside of Copenhagen, the central, like the capital of Denmark.
That's fantastic. Now, you may or may not remember, those who are watching this video, I did a video on prayer entitled, Why Aren't My Prayers Answered? And I Got Nothing was the title. It was in the comment string. Gary, yes, I say that wrong. It's Benjamin. If I'm not mistaken, I get the last name, Horst. Is that pronounced right? Well, Horst, yeah, but I go by Benjamin or Ben, so that's going to be fun. But I did that video, and he commented some things in that video's comment string, and it just touched my heart. And so I wanted to comment back. And we had a pretty nice back and forth where I learned his name is actually Benjamin Horst, like I said, who's from Denmark. And Benjamin, is there anything you want to say before I get finish up here, and then we'll have our conversation?
Yeah, so I have been a member of the church for 3 months right now after having investigated and been like a friend of the church for over 2 years. So it has been a lot of ups and downs in that, but I'm very satisfied with where I have come to right now. And also, I'm 27 years old, and yeah, I'm an educated teacher. So
Wow.
that's what I
Thanks for that
basically
little
do.
tidbit. This is going to be fun as we get into the conversation. I'm so happy, like I said, that you're willing to jump on a Zoom call with me to share some of your story. And before we do that, I want to share some exciting news to my viewers. For those of you who were watching one of my videos for the first time and you find it to be interesting and worth your precious time, please take a moment to click the like button and the subscribe buttons and click that notification bell. That way you can be notified on my next video when I post it. And when you do that, you're helping my channel grow, which allows my content to be exposed to a much larger audience. And speaking of growing my channel, I have to give you all a big thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In a recent video, I had mentioned that I needed 500 more subscribers to reach the benchmark of 1,000 subscribers before you can even become a partner with YouTube as a content provider and start participating in their revenue share and that kind of thing. Well, yesterday on May 16th, my channel reached that benchmark. And so I now have over 1,050 subscribers, and it's still growing. So thank you so much. As I said, I'll keep you posted on the revenue. Whenever I get that first check, whenever this, I'm going to show it to you. And we can start saving up. I'm going to get that mic, but then from there on, we're going to get money saved up in a special account, like I said, for a young woman or a young man or possibly a couple to help support their mission expenses. And so I'm so excited because it's moving in that direction. And if it doesn't happen till the end of the year, that's fine. But I think it's going to happen just be sooner than that. So please keep sending one of my video links to your family and friends so that the channel continues to grow and we can reach that goal faster and faster. That way, like I said, it's going to be a special thing for all of us because you're part of that team of helping. It's certainly not me. And it's a nice way to do mission work by sending a link and that kind of thing. You're not putting yourself right out in front of a full conversation. That's still good. But if you're not comfortable with that, this allows you folks to do it. Just like I'm having this opportunity to talk with Benjamin. It's so exciting. So, okay, the housekeeping is done. So let's go and have this conversation with you, Benjamin. This is to set this up a little bit, I want to share what you said to me in a comment section of why aren't my prayers answered? I got nothing. Here's what you wrote, just kind of lay the foundation. Is that okay? You said, I
Go
really
ahead.
appreciate people speaking about this topic of prayer, since I, as a member of the church, have never felt the Spirit in any recognizable sense and never really have had my prayer answered in any recognizable sense. My testimony is not really built on that. But I agree with you that it will happen in due time. That said, it was giving me a lot of doubts and feelings of doubts along the way, because to me, it seems like God works in a very arbitrary way in answering and giving testimonies, which can definitely cause doubt. Anyway, those of you who are watching this particular video right now, your viewers, you can go to a video comment string of that video and listen and read all the rest of the back and forth that Benjamin and I had. It's special, and it's what caused me, stirred within me to want to have this conversation with this. I didn't really know that you said you're a convert, Benjamin, of about a month now?
3 months.
3 months. 90 days. Anyhow, why don't you, if you don't mind, take a moment and share your story, and that'll allow us to have a give and take, and where you born and what your youth was like. Did you have a faith before? And you said you're 27, 26?
27, yes.
27. That's still young. That's a babe. I'm 70, so I'm just teasing, but you know, that's exciting. So take it away. Share kind of how you feel and where lead you to this point, and some of your story or your story. It's going to be, if you don't mind me interrupting here and there, because I have a question for you, that'd be good. But otherwise, just go ahead.
Yes. So I have always lived here in Denmark. I grew up here and went to school and did all these things. In Denmark, it's quite normal that religiosity is more like of a cultural experience. It's not really taken that seriously. So yeah, it's more much more secular than in many other places. I think the Nordic countries are perhaps some of the most secular countries in the world, at least. So the amount of religiosity that you are grown up with is very low. So it's mostly like
tell me about your family.
tradition.
How many children did your parents have, and are you still
So I'm the youngest of 3,
okay?
but I have a twin brother and an older brother. So I have had a very good connection with them, and I still do. And yeah, when you have a twin brother, it's like you always have someone who's the same age that you can fight with or play with or do stuff together with. And we have had a lot of mutual
I know that's
friends.
special.
And
I don't have any twins, but I've known a few friends that are twins, and it's special. That's exciting. That's fun for you. That's nice.
yeah, exactly. But here in Denmark, when you go to school, you have like a subject of religion, which I also teach myself, but it's focused more on getting to learn religion and then analyze it in a sociological manner or
kind of an academic
phenomenological manner.
Experience.
Yeah. So it's more not really. It's just like maybe, as you said, academic in a sense. So there's no real preaching, and there is actually law that you cannot really preach in school or do these kinds of things. You cannot really influence the children. Else you can probably get fired for that.
Okay.
So it's very non-confessional in that sense.
What age group do you teach, Ben?
So I can teach pretty much from grade 3 to grade 10, I think.
Okay.
And in our school system, all these grades are in the same school usually. So
interesting.
That's how it works. So basically, I have had a very great childhood. I was confirmed in the Lutheran Church, which is the national church of Denmark. So we are a Lutheran country, but people usually go for like Easter and Christmas and get confirmed and get baptized. There was a discussion in a newspaper where a priest, he said, "Oh, perhaps we should start excluding the creed, the Apostles' Creed, from being baptized because the parents, they don't believe that. So it is a stumbling block for them getting their children baptized because they have to say that they believe the creed when they don't." And I was just like, well, you can just not have Christianity at all then, right?
That's true. Yeah, coming from the West, coming from Boise, Idaho, growing up, and now in Utah, I don't know about Copenhagen. I don't know about Denmark or Europe. My brother, he's no longer married to her, but he had a young woman from Denmark, and there was two cultures. They managed to pull it together, but it is so different, and that's about as much as I know of a few conversations I had with Bianca, was her name. So anyhow, it's very fascinating to be listening to you talk about your environment and the state religion, and that's just it's so different for me.
Ja, så det er snart. Nej, kan jeg gå ovenpå egentlig? So just move upstairs now.
Okay, fantastic.
just
While
as
you're moving up there, I'll just tell you that it's really interesting. 27, so I'm interested in learning about your junior high, high school type grade process and these kind of discussions that you had with teachers, not discussing, but learning that, but then what turned in your life to start that. It's going to be exciting to hear what you have to say. That's going to be fun.
so basically religion as a like lifestyle and all these kinds of things, it's hasn't really been something that was really something that was a big part of my life. I mean, when I grew up, it was like when I had to get confirmed in the Lutheran Church, right? You have to be educated by the priest. So you have like nearly a whole year where you have lessons with the priest, like once a week, and then you have some trips to learn what the faith is about, who God is, and what Jesus did for us, right? And it was very nice, but I mean, yeah, with many young guys and girls in the teens and coming after school and having to go to something that is more school or whatever, it can be tough, especially when you're not brought up with these concepts and
Sure.
you don't really have a relation to these concepts. I mean, it feels like nice and all of these kinds of things, but it's perhaps hard to relate to it because when you're not brought up with it, you're like completely new into it, I would say. But I think we had a very good time there because socially I were with my brother and my friends, and we had a
Well,
very
how
good
old were you when you
time.
started that year?
Yeah, that was when I was 15 years old. So that's
15.
12 years ago, actually, 12 years
Okay.
ago.
But you had your
Yes.
year of catechism in a way that the Catholic call learning.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, but it just afterwards it just really didn't stick. You know, we got a Bible as a confirmation gift. I still have it right here, and this is a Protestant Bible. So it's also like the same thing we use in church, right? I think, yeah, probably is. So yeah, and after that, I think it just fizzled away, right? And the interest, you know, it's usually dependent, at least it was dependent for me a lot on, okay, so what are my friends doing? When you're young, you're very dependent on like, what are your social group doing? Is it something that we are engaged in? And is it something that we care about? If it's not, if it's up to your own like initiative and engagement into it, then it's very hard to keep going in that, right?
Interesting.
So that just fizzled away at that time.
Did you have a local Lutheran
Yeah,
place that you went?
yeah, so I live like 150 meters from the church where I was confirmed at that point in time.
Okay,
And I still do because I
okay,
still live with my parents. Yeah.
okay. All right. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, those next few years, when did you start college? You went to school? Did you go to college, of course?
So my education was first I went to high school, actually a Catholic high school, where we were engaged still in the faith on a surface level, I would say, but you know, it was a high school experience, and a high school experience in Denmark, we are very infamous about being the youth in Europe that drinks the most, basically.
Okay.
So you could
But you
probably
didn't go
imagine.
against that. You participated right in that world, right?
Yeah, of course, because
Yeah.
that was what we did, and I had a lot of good experiences with that as well as also some bad ones. But you know, I built a lot of good friendships in high schools that I still carry to this day, and I really cherish all of those experiences a lot,
Good.
even though many things have changed since then. But I think it was a good experience for me, but I think the culture about drinking in Denmark, it's just too much out of hand. It's just so out of hand, especially in the youth. And there has been a lot of discussions about like how can we like dim up for this problem, make it less severe, because
Yeah.
it, yeah, it's not good that you have like a whole youth group where everything is about partying, have fun, getting drunk, and get a very drunk, like completely out of your mind, wasted, and that's pretty bad. So
Well,
I
you call
also
that
feel,
eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. That's kind of what you're describing.
yeah, but that's just the whole like energy in your youth. You want to push the boundaries, see how much you can do, and just see wherever it takes you. Really, you don't really think about consequences or all
Yeah.
these kinds of
Well, what
things.
changed
So,
your direction? Because that can be a pretty steep mapping on our brain, having had that for years, especially as in your teens and your early 20s. What changed for you? What took you down the path that you ended up where you're at?
yeah, so I went to like both university where I studied social sciences and political sciences, but I dropped out of that study after a year and a half. And then I had a half a year where I worked as a um, substitute teacher at my Catholic high school. And after that, I applied to become going into studying education to become a school teacher, right? And when I was a school like student for being a school teacher, I still had that lifestyle until like I think 3 years ago or something like that, where I tried to dim it down a little bit and become more adult like. And then I picked my subject for as teaching religion, so I picked
Oh,
that subject, and it was actually at the first time I didn't really want it because I actually picked German as a subject at that point in time, but I just knew that it wouldn't work for me because I'm not that good at teaching languages. So I didn't really want to do that. So I had to find something else. Then I was offered a place on the religion subject. And when you study religion, one of the subjects you have to go through is world religions, and then you have a whole semester of Christianity.
oh,
And we had an assignment um, about like a Danish Christian society that we wanted to study and make a presentation about. So we thought like, okay, what could be a great presentation? What could be a unique angle? What do we think is interesting? And I mentioned that I live close to the church because I live like 500 meters away from the Copenhagen Stake Center, and my ward building is just down the road from where I live. So I said, okay, could it be interesting studying how it is to be a missionary here in Denmark, and what does these missionaries do? And everyone was on board with that, and
are
I
you referring to the
contacted,
Latter-day Saint missionaries or just missionaries in?
yes, yeah,
Okay,
LDS.
you knew of them because they're going twos all over that place. I'm sure you've seen them and watched them. Yeah.
Yeah, I have met them like once on Christianshavn, and as I said, I have the Stake Center building 500 meters down the road from where I live.
Okay. Okay.
So I knew a little bit. I think I always mentioned to other people in the church, what I knew about the church was three things. What is he called? Mitt Romney. He was
Okay.
a Mormon or a member of the church, right?
Right.
And it's because of his campaign in the 2012 election
Correct.
against Obama, right?
Right.
And then there was polygamy and Utah. That's basically it, right?
So
So
there you
that
go.
was
That
basically
covers it.
when, and I didn't even know that there was a Book of Mormon, or that there like was all these kinds of things, or about Joseph Smith. So you could see how ignorant I actually was about like everything within the church. But I think that's pretty normal because it's like it's a very small um, group here in Denmark, actually. So we are not that many people, even though we have a great history of emigrating to the United States
Yes.
and all these things, but and setting up in Zion, and many people from Utah and that area descend from Danes, so they love visiting here and be missionaries here and all these kinds of things. But there are not that many left, like here at this point in time, so it's not that big. But we studied them, and they got my contact information, and we were very excited about it. We were very happy that we met these sister missionaries, and we interviewed them, and it went very well. And we got a good look into how it is being a missionary. What is it that drives these people to go on a mission for a year and a half and 2 years, and doing it out of their own pocket? And what is it that they are? What is their message? And what do they think is the most important thing about their message? How do they connect to it? And just how are they received here in Denmark? Are people eager to listen to their message, or is it a tough going,
So
which
you're
it
doing a
usually is?
research basically on this and taking good notes as part of your studies and the work you're going to do. That's how it started then.
Yes, and then they had my contact information, and because I live so close by, they of course invited me to church service and invited me to learn more about the gospel. And I was like, yeah, why not, really, because it doesn't really take a long time for me, and they have helped me tremendously by doing this, because it was a great presentation, and we had a lot of like what do you call it? We were it was very well received by our teachers, so
How many,
they
was
really
it little
loved
group
it.
lessons? Did I catch there was a little group, 3 or 4 of you as a group with this?
Yeah, we were a group of 4
Okay.
people, I think, yeah, at that point in time.
Just a quick thought. The light behind you is kind of once in a while blocking you out. I just want to make sure that we can see you. Oh, that's really great right there. Thank you. So how many was in this little group that was listening and going through this process?
Yeah, so I was invited back, and I also invited the other guys, but the other guys, they were like lived far away, so they never returned. So they just got the interview, and then I continued like studying and come to church and try to see what it was all about. I was just very curious about it, because as I said, I didn't really know anything, right?
Sure,
I
sure.
was just like, well, you guys have helped me. Of course, I want to see what you're about and all these kinds of things, right?
Right.
That's just, I feel like that's a very natural response to that. So I was eager to do that, and that started like in 2021, the winter, about around Christmas time, 2021.
Wow.
Yeah,
About 3 years ago then, 2.5, 3 years ago.
yeah, 2.5 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. So was it enjoyable? Did you have just pelt them with lots of questions? I suspect you had lots of questions, especially on the academic side of learning the ins and outs and why. But this why is probably took you down a path of why would they do that? Man, I never heard that before. I mean, I just looking and listening to your story, I suspect you had quite a bit of thought after these meetings going in your head.
Yeah, but I was like, because the missionary lessons, it's like very structured, that you already know like a lot about
Sure.
like these
Okay.
kinds of things. At least I think so. I think it's, if you don't really know anything, it's kind of hard to relate about the first vision. Like, I just remember the first lesson when we spoke about the first vision. I was just like, well, it's a claim.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know how to relate to that story. I mean, you can believe it's true, you can believe it's not true. I mean, that was just how I reacted to that, and I thought it sounds quite good, quite all right. I mean, but I couldn't really relate to it, and I think it's very important that you can relate to the story, and that's why I actually think that the first vision story is a very bad way to start out the lessons, at least. But
From your perspective, from your background,
yeah,
that's probably a true statement. Just how you related to it. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
because I think what it presupposes is that you are already a Christian, basically, and that you're searching for the true church. Basically, everyone in Denmark is not really that, right? So it's kind of weird to get this magical worldview thinking and getting all these
right off the
revelations
bat. Yeah.
and all that, because here in Denmark, when you're very secular, you cannot really relate to that.
I'm not sure what happened, but it just went out, and then I noticed the internet, something glitched here, but it came right back on, so it's still recording. So anyhow, that's what you experienced. What would you think would be a better approach now that you're a member of the church, you've been through that for 2.5 years, to have started with you, do you think?
I think it's basically speaking of, I think it's the most important thing is just again to learn about the person first. Like, where are they at? What are their experience with religion? What are their like view on religion? And then trying to open up about who God is. Perhaps you could speak about morality or all these kinds of things, because I think it's very important to
I think
convey
you're
a
absolutely right,
message
Benjamin. You're
that
absolutely
is
right.
like that
Yep.
is everyone can speak with you about, because we all have a sense of good and evil. We all have a sense, perhaps some have a sense of something transcendent, and perhaps if they have like spiritual like beliefs or some religious beliefs, or you can build upon that and relate to that within your own framework as we have in the church. So I think that's very
That's the
important.
teacher in you. That's the teacher in you. You're right
Yeah,
on.
because you have to build upon what they already have and be sure that they can relate to what you are telling them, because
That's
else
right.
they won't really be able to do that. So I think that's why I think the missionary discussion, they are very much for an American context and not really for a worldwide context at all.
I hear you.
So
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. That's the teacher in you. You have a perception there. I think you've hit it right on the nail. So that's great. That's great. So you started into this academically and research wise. When did it shift? What things changed? Or I know it wasn't as bam, or maybe it was, but something happened that you moved in saying, man, this is really such that you took ownership of it, and there's a conversion, I suspect, in there. So tell that story. Tell the rest of that story.
so I think the important part for me was like that they were very much into like spiritual experiences, and you can get a sure knowledge of that it is true, and that you can feel these things and get all of that. And I was like, whoa, if that is true, perhaps I can just, and I think I had a very like Alma 32 like approach. Just try it out, see where it takes me. Let's see how this is done, and if there's anything to it, right? Because I'm very open-minded about these things. So especially when they are nice people and all of that. I mean, if there's nothing like else about it, then I would just try to see, okay, is it as they tell me or is it not? So I was very eager into that, and I just told myself, okay, let's go on this adventure. Let's try it out. Let's try to pray about the Book of Mormon. Let's try to do all the things that the missionary tells me, and I even did even more things on top of that. I think I was the greatest student ever, because I read the text that they gave me, then I wrote my thoughts about those to them, and then I asked for more every single day, basically. So they were just over eager about that and were very impressed with my thoughts about these things. And they always thought, "Oh, that's great," and oh, he seems like the golden ticket right into the church, right, in a sense,
It
because he's just
absolutely
so excited about it and just want to learn and do all these kinds of things. So that was what really happened, that I really like saw it as a kind of an adventure for me. Also because I'm like, if it's not for me, then I can just afterwards I can just leave, go inactive. It's just what it is, because that's very normal as well when people join the church, that 3 months or so, some of them go inactive, some of them are still attending, but it's like a mixed bag in that sense. So I thought like, let's see where this takes me. So they wanted me to get baptized like over 2 years ago, and that didn't happen because I told like my parents and we had a discussion about it, and they wanted me to research it much deeper and be more like
More
really,
informed.
yeah, more informed about it because it went very quickly. And I agree with that. I think that was a very good decision at that point in time because I didn't really know what I was getting into. I didn't really know that much because, and I also think that is the problem with the missionary lessons. It's basically like an overview of the basic beliefs, but I think for a guy like me who's very academically minded or just very into studying and very engaged with the subject, I just think that it was very good to think about it in a more deeper way, and that has really brought me on a very long journey. But yeah, I think that was a good decision at that point in time.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I can see that. It's interesting. There's a contrary here. There's the knowledge, research, digging into it, broader, deeper, wider, looking into. And then also, how do you balance that Greek mentality, academic thing to the other side of the coin? The other part of the contrary, proving the contraries, is the simplicity, is that be humble as a little child and being led to be able to have the Spirit lead you to do the two and not have them conflict. Somehow you manage to prove those two contraries, that they come together, that you found the depth, but you also apparently felt the simplicity part of it as well, that it's true. The Holy Spirit spoke to you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Benjamin, but tell me a little bit about that process.
So I think the most important thing is that you try things out and then you see how they work. So a pragmatic approach in that sense, does it change something in your life? Does it actually work as intended? And I have really had that approach all the time. So
It bore
you do,
fruit. The planting of the seed experiment, it bore fruit.
yeah, but I think it took a long time because I also really researched the church a lot, and you know about all these sources online, these skeptical sources, especially like I came across like Mormon stories after 3 months in the church and all
Yeah.
these things. So I learned all the skeptical arguments very early on, and of course the missionaries, they were not really equipped to handle that and to speak about that and to come with some explanations or come with some evidence or that, because it's like that's not what they're there for. And I feel like here there's not really anyone here that really knows about even the skeptical arguments or the evidence or anything. It's like more of just what we do and what we believe, and either you accept it on faith or you don't. And that's basically what I was told at least multiple times, that it's what they really wanted me to think
Accept
about
on
is
faith.
like
Accept it
like
on faith and move forward with this. Yeah, I can.
yeah.
Oh,
And they really spoke multiple times about the Moroni's promise, right? And I said, yeah, but that hasn't worked yet. So it's all right that it's there, but that never manifested for me. So I was really left to myself to try and research all these kinds of things, and I just didn't know where the resources were. Luckily, I came upon great resources after like I think a year and a half, and so
wow.
I stumbled upon good resources. I have watched like I feel like the first resource that really sprinkled into more was like Jacob Hansen's channel on YouTube,
Yes.
Thoughtful Faith. I feel like he really also recommended other channels, and he had like interviews with Blake Ostler, people like him, and other people, and he had like recommendations to like his own faith journey. I saw his video about his own faith journey and how he like reestablished his faith after a faith crisis, a reconstruction of it, he calls it, and he talks about these three tiers of conversation, like about the tier one, the God, the conversation about the existence of God. Okay, so what resources can we draw upon to make that rational. And I feel like he gave me a lot of good recommendations at that point in time, and I was very thankful for that. So I studied the arguments for the existence of God and the arguments for atheism and all these kinds of things, and I was quite convinced that God did exist. Because I think if you make a cumulative case, I think, and this is just my opinion, of course, because there are many smart people who are also naturalists, so I don't want to diminish that opinion, but I think that God exists. That was the conclusion that I came to, because I think many of the arguments are actually quite good. The question is, do they work in an LDS context?
Yeah.
Many of them I think do, some of them don't, but I just was quite convinced about transcendence was real.
Yeah.
A little bit like if you read like the dialogues of Plato as an example with Socrates. I have just read Phaedon as an example where he speaks about these transcendentals, and I think that is also quite an argument that I really like at the moment, is the transcendental argument for God, also the moral argument, the argument for contingency. These kinds of arguments, I actually think they're quite good in many aspects.
That's the
Also,
God one. So then it moved on. What was the second thing that came up?
that's about what religion, so how is God manifested himself in history, basically. So that's where you speak about Jesus Christ, or you could speak about the Quran, or you could speak about the Torah and the Jewish people as an example, right? Or you could speak about the teachings of Buddha, or all these kinds of things. So how has the transcendence manifested itself in reality? And I just feel like, of course, I always was cultural Christian. I was brought up with the Jesus story, so I always had a lot of respect for that. So it was just natural to grasp towards that story. But then I also realized, okay, the Bible is quite reliable. You can make a good case that it is written by those who claim to write it, that it is written quite early, that it is eyewitness testimony, and that they get so many things right. So it is quite reliable. You can make that argument. I think that was good. But I think it was more the argument for the resurrection of Jesus. And I feel like people like N.T. Wright, these kinds of people, I feel like made quite good arguments about the evidence for this. And then I was just like, okay, so you can believe the testimony of Paul. There are quite good reasons to do it. Would you like it to be true? So I took like a Pascalian approach to that. Okay, there's good evidence for it. Would you like it to be true? I mean, what do you have to lose about it? Good, then go ahead and just believe in it, because you really have nothing to lose about it. So I was always very convinced about that was true, because I feel like it gets quite obscure if you have alternative explanations for the origin of Christianity. I think many often fail for many reasons. So that really got me into thinking, okay, so Christianity must be true. And then I was introduced to many of the evidence for the Book of Mormon, for the claims of Joseph Smith, because Jacob Hansen, he linked the LDS Truth Claims channel with Brett McDonald's lectures.
Yes.
And I think that was very interesting. Of course, what I think he did very well is construct like a positive case and lay out the positive evidence that I really craved to hear about, because I never heard about this for like a year and a half. All I heard about was the arguments against it. But then when I thought about these arguments for, I began to think as it that the Book of Mormon, it was possibly true, because I felt like he made a very good case about it. So that changed my view, because before that, when I just knew all the skeptical arguments, I was like, well, there's just no way. There's just no way it could be true. There's just no way. These are very good people, and they have like got a spiritual experience, and that's a good foundation for them. But if I didn't have that, then there's just no way that I should believe this is true, right? but I think what he did well is like establishing all these kinds of data points that we can see, and that we can that provide evidence for the claims of Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon, the restoration as a whole. And I thought that some of his best lectures are actually those on theology, because I feel like his lectures on theology is a very good comparison between Latter-day Saint theology and why it is great, and then just standard Christian theology, like mainstream Christian theology. And that really
You
opened
had
my
the
eyes
God
to,
situation, this Christianity choice of religion. Did
yeah,
that move you to a third one, or is it included?
yeah. The third one is about, okay, then if you have Christianity, then what branch of Christianity do you want
There you go. Okay, yeah.
to participate in? So that was where I really looked into all of the evidence, and that changed my mind upon that it was possibly true that Joseph Smith could be a prophet, and that the Book of Mormon could be true. So that shifted my mind a
So you
lot.
really did some
And
homework. My goodness, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. And
So at some point, though, do you think, and this isn't a criticism, Benjamin, it's just a curiosity. At some point, did you make a academic decision? Okay, I've got all these data points that it really looks that I could really not be go wrong by believing it's true. Or did you move into it all into the spiritual side of things where your knower spoke to you in your heart and you learned? What did that happen, or at what point did it? If not, why do you think?
so I think that really came in much later. I think that's like, I feel like that was a part of the process all along, but only in very small steps by step,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So what I really realized was that I was very skeptical about, like, okay, so I have this relationship with these people at church. They are very nice. They are all these kinds of things. But are we just friends because we participate the same place, or do they genuinely care for my journey or about me? And what I realized was that I had a chat with one of my former missionaries, and a lot of my missionaries, they were I was very good friends with them, and I still am. But what I realized very quickly was that this care was quite genuine, because even when I took longer breaks from the church and all of that, and they were just happy to see me engage in whatever faith that I really wanted to, and just care about that really. So they had a genuine interest in it, in me, even despite of me belonging to a specific group. And I thought that really changed my mind about, okay, so these people actually care about me in that sense, and I have a genuine relationship with that. Because usually when you watch all these skeptical podcasts, you can quickly get into the mind of, okay, so all they care about is just, they are framing it very, like, very cynically, that people are just making relationships quite of cynically just for you to go come into and be part of it, and all this. And I've very quickly like found out that that was just a completely false picture of it all. And I felt like that grew on me very quickly. And also what I noticed is that not my behavior changed, but I feel like, I think it's hard to explain, but it enhanced my sensibility for injustices.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to do something about that. And I feel like that is the way that the Spirit has been working with me, is like enhancing the gifts that I already do have. So a feeling of wanting to help people that are experiencing injustices, wanting to try and help people where they are, educating people, all these kinds of things, having fun, lifting people up when they have a hard time. I mean, all the missionaries basically love me because I always encourage them and do all these kinds of stuff, right? So, so I think that was always what I already did as a teacher, but I feel like it was enhanced throughout this process as well, process as well. I saw some definite changes that whenever I meet like a homeless person, usually outside of the supermarket, I also always go in and buy them something now. And I never used to do that because in Denmark here we just walk by because okay, that's the state's responsibility, or that's no. Now it's whenever you meet someone, it's your responsibility. It's always your responsibility because you had the choice of doing something here or not doing something here.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big change that I noticed, and also just the willingness to do more charity work and engage myself more in other people's lives in that
Well,
sense.
this altruism that you're talking about is what the world would call it. I call it the love of Christ. It's growing in you and the understanding. And it is, once conversion happens to the Savior, the closer you draw to him, the more you draw to his children, our Father in heaven's children, and sharing. That's what I'm hearing. I think I'm wrong, but I think that's what I'm hearing in you. As you got to know the Savior even deeper, you loved those people around you.
Yeah, I think as well. And of course, I would also relate that to like an acknowledgement of like the big role that Jesus plays in our lives, that we are inspired and new for what he did and how he treated people who were marginalized or had a tough time and all these kinds of things. And that always inspired me a lot. And when we set him as the pinnacle example of who we want to be, then that demands a lot of us, that we actually do it, go out and do it, and feel like that is the best thing that we can do, is trying to be more like him.
I couldn't have said it better, Benjamin.
Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly right. That's right. So, year and a half, you came to a point, decision time. I don't know if that was hard or difficult. You lost family. They love you for it because they knew you took the time. I'd like to hear the story of that decision process and then what's happened since, if you don't mind, as we finish up on this.
Yeah. So my family, they weren't really all into it, really, because we are very secular here in Denmark, and I just think they don't really know that much about the churches. Very surface level, really, I think. And of course, they have heard some criticisms and all of that. And I also feel like when I was in my skeptical phase, which lasted for over a year, I also told them some of these skeptical things, and I like all my complaints. People that are skeptical about the church, usually many of them complain a lot about all these kinds of different things that are not according to a more secular worldview where we value other things which I was used to. Um, so I think they were very influenced in that way. I think I did myself I treated in a very bad way for a long time. But then when I made the decision, like, yeah, my mom really didn't like it, but she's okay with it now. But it was really something that I had to really dig deep into, because I was quite nervous about it, because I knew how she felt about it and I could understand why she felt that way about it. I mean, what I feel like quite good at is trying to see things from other people's perspective, even though that is really impossible. I feel like I have a kind of good grasp on it with people that I know really well. So that was a challenge, but I decided to go through with it. But I just didn't tell them after. I only did it after I had done it. So that was actually how it happened. And then it turned out fine. I mean, it has been 3 months today, and it is good as ever. Now it's just a thing that I do, and I have been doing like the same things for like over 2 years. So I think they are completely fine with it. Actually, I don't really see anything, and nothing has really changed in that sense. So all my fears were just like set aside completely, because none of them materialized in any way or shape or form. So that was great, and since then it's just been a pleasure. basically. Also
Yes.
because I have also like, I didn't tell that part of my story, but my mother and my grandmother, they are basically, or at least my grandma, she's Catholic, right? So I was actually baptized Catholic. So I could also so I have also participated in the Catholic Church with my grandmother since after this new year. So they knew that I was very into my faith and that I really had a lot of like a very nuanced perspective on many things, and that I like they trust me and my judgment on it. So they're not really worried about it anymore. So I'm actually very happy with that, and I'm very happy that I can be able to also like share the Christian faith with my grandmother, and that has
Sure.
really given me something completely special, a very special relationship with her that I wish that I had earlier. But now that I have it, I cherish it a lot. It's very important because when you're a single guy and you go to church and all of this, I mean, you really have to find the drive for it on your own and out of your own excitement, right? Because the community can be quite good in our church, in the LDS church, right? But it's still your own drive. But I feel like when you have, it can really deepen your family relationship when you have that common belief and that common worship of Jesus and of God, and the common values that comes with that, and that you pray together and that you do all these things together. I think that really strengthened the relationship with my granny, even though we had a great relationship
Sure.
beforehand as well. So, but it's just deepened it a little bit and made her even more happy about what we are doing. So I think that's very important because that becomes like a motivation in itself when you have your family and you're excited about, both are excited about it. It's much easier to get into the rhythm of it. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's why so many converts perhaps can become inactive, because it can quickly get a little bit boring at periods of time in the church, or perhaps you're not really connecting with the people that are there, and you don't have that link that a family can be, or that
Yes.
a
That's a
girlfriend could
tough one.
be, or whatever. So when you have that link, it's just like one of the biggest blessings ever.
I think that's a fabulous insight. It's really, I don't want to, I want you to know this is sincere what I'm going to say, but you're very articulate. You're a bright young man. I don't think single's going to be in your life very long. I think you have a lot to offer. You're quite bright, but I'm just saying that yes, we do need to have associations that really lock us together. Families is right at the top. Friends within the church that have same energy about it as you do. Um, and then the study, the continual study and expanding really helps, because that's what I thoroughly enjoyed since my mission. I've just hundreds and hundreds of books and reading and studying. It's kept me grounded in that way. So I think that's wonderful. But I want to ask you, Benson, before we close this up, is there anything that you would like to say that you've kind of been answering my questions? Is there anything you'd like to share with the viewers that may cross your mind of the experience you've had? And I'm so thrilled that you came across my channel, made a comment, because I think we've got a relationship that I'd love to stay in touch. I'm going to send you my email of the book, not the hardbound, because that will take $50, and that's okay. If you want it, I'm happy to send it. But it's got small print, but the book itself on PDF, you can expand it to large read or not, whatever you want. And I'm happy to email that to you so you have it to read it and look at it, because it talks about, it's called An Atheist Delusion. And it's my rebuttal to the atheist Richard Dawkins, the God delusion. And we talk about the arguments of the theory that God exists or does not exist. And so I think you'll find it interesting, the way I heard you say about some of the things. I'll send that to you. But as far as before we close off, is there something you'd like to say that's on your heart to those who are listening? And I'll just let Hush and let you share that, and then I'll close her off.
So I think what the message of my journey really is, that you need an open heart. Really, you really need to stay open and be open-minded, and not being closed off, because when you come into the church, everything is new. You receive so much, and whenever you then face adversity because it's so different from what you already believe, or it's like something in your life that you need to change, or some outside of your life that is like pressuring you on some of the things or whatever. I think it's just very good to stay open and stay humble, because I feel like, and through my process, what always kept it going was the relationship and my willingness to always keep in it, because I really fought for it for a long time, because I struggled for over a year getting to where I am now. And I'm very happy with where I am now. But what I think one of my mistakes was really like hyper focusing on all the skeptical stuff, and being like in that frame of mind too much, and not really letting me think about, okay, having a more balanced perspective, or like these things you can quickly hyper focus on it, because I feel like many of the skeptical objections, some of them are good, I must admit, but I think most of them is just like very emotional charging, like polygamy and polyandry, treasure digging, these kinds of things. They are very like emotional draining, because it's so foreign to us historically, and it seems so out of place for us. We cannot really understand, we cannot really set ourselves into that frame of mind at all. So it becomes something that really drains us, even when it's not a good objection at all, logically at least, I think. So I think that's how you can quickly become very overwhelmed, because it's overwhelming you emotionally. And I feel like when I watch like Mormon stories, and I just watched like John Delaney had a podcast with Cara Bouville about the 10 reasons why the church cannot be true. And I feel like 5, 6, 7 of the objections, they are mostly not logical. They are mostly just like emotional draining, actually. At least I think so. Of course, there are good objections that you need to work through, but give it time. I mean, be open to that there can't be answers to them, and don't let them uh, bring you away of your good habits, your good spiritual habits, your enjoyment of others' company, the friendships and the strong family bonds that you have. Give it time to see if it can be resolved, because that was what it did. It became to me. It became resolved to me after I struggled with it for a long time, where I felt like that it would never be like that. But I always enjoyed going to church, having my friends there, practicing Christianity in that way. So, so I feel like that's what you always need: an open heart, patience, and a little bit of humility, and then you will probably get where you need to be uh, at some point in time. Give it time, because I feel like I have seen many videos online who talk about the CS letter and why they left the church, and I feel like they don't give it enough of time. They don't really struggle with it for too long. And I mean, you can struggle with these things for 5, 10 years if you want to, and I think that is perfectly fine. But give it time and see where it can take you, and then you can make up your mind about it, because that will also give you time to let the spirit be a part of your life, and don't hyper focus on these things. Usually I think it's great studying them and make your own mind up about them, but what I did wrong was letting them cloud my vision about what was the true important thing about what I was doing, and why I was there in the first place. And it never ruined my relationships, because I always just left those outside the church, and then I could grab upon them afterwards. But I think it's very much important to have your heart open to be changed, and be patient with it, and don't let it ruin everything immediately. Um, because you quickly get very hyper focused on it, because it's so emotionally draining when you first learn of all these things. And I also think that's a very big mistake of the church, that people first get to learn some of these stuff so late. But that was just it. Be open to the spirit guiding you, and stay patient with it, like work through it, find some resources, find some people you can speak with, and be patient and don't give everything up just because it's hard right now, because it is hard, and there are much greater challenges than learning these objections, really. So that
That's
was
marvelous.
that's at least the message from my journey, I think. And that's why I also think usually faith is a choice, because I feel like some of these objections, if you think about them, some of them are quite good. And I think some of them, if you interpret them in a certain way, they are, of course, destroying of faith and make it impossible of it being true. I had a very big problem with anachronisms in the Book of Mormon for a long time, both physical and textual and all these kinds of things. But I turned around on that because I learned even more about it and saw the progression, and I also saw the evidence. And when you see the evidence and the objection, you need to weigh them up and see, okay, is there a place for my faith here, or is there not? And for me, that definitely was, because I think a lot of the evidence is just unexplainable on a naturalistic worldview. And I feel like the naturalistic explanations are just inadequate of explaining all the causes of action that happened at that point in time. So, and also, of course, the spiritual testimony of how being a part of the church, how exercising my faith has changed me personally, is also a good indicator of how you can see truth if you just interpret it in that way. So I think it's very important to think about and give it time, because I think many people are struggling with these things and then hyper focusing on it, taking rash decisions, studying it for a year and then leaving or whatever, because they cannot take the emotional drain that it is, and there's so much on the line. Luckily for me, I was not a lifetime member, so I always had a backup plan, and it wouldn't cost me anything not to be a part of the church in that sense. So it wasn't emotionally draining, that I feel like for many people, when they have grown up like that and their families all part of the church and all that, that could be very emotionally draining, and I can understand that. But I think give it time, and then always remember the good things about it, and all the small pieces of testimony, like the rays of light that Elder Dushku, he was speaking about in his speech, that we have received throughout our lives, and always remember those, and then you can get through it piece by piece and reestablish it. I feel like that was what Jacob Hansen he did, that was what I did, and I feel like that is what can, if you can get through that phase, your testimony can get out much stronger, because you have really laid a foundation that just cannot be broken, basically. So yeah,
That's
so
marvelous.
if you can survive that, and then
yeah.
all is good.
Then all is good. Well, I tell you, you are such a blessing to your country, to your community. Your sensibilities are fabulous, Benjamin, and it's so nice to meet you. I appreciate what's been on your heart, and the journey you've been through, and you nailed your message beautifully. It matches up so well to what the scriptures say happens, and you covered the bases. And I hope those that come to my YouTube channel and look at the Dispelling the Accusatory Fog series that I've been doing, yours fits so beautifully, your story, and I love you for it. So thanks so much. Those of you who have been with this journey for this time that we've had with Benjamin, I thank you for coming. I hope you share some comments and take a moment to do that. If you're new and haven't subscribed, I hope you subscribe. But just know this, these kinds of stories, especially this one that covered the gamut that Benjamin's did, I think are going to help a lot of people and friends that you know that are struggling or in their cognitive dissonance stage, or they are actually moved into faith crisis, because it kind of describes quite a bit of that in Benjamin's story. So I hope you let folks see this testimony, this message, because he's brilliant, he's bright, he's articulated it beautifully, and it matches up what the scriptures say. So share it. Just want you to know that I love you for coming by, and hope you make some comments and share some thoughts, and hope one day I'll get to meet you. But until then, like I've always say, I want you to have continued success. God bless you. Goodbye. Let's see. There we go.